This happened to me a long time ago. It happened sometime in the 1990s, back when I was still pretty young. I was part of a program that was run by the CIA. Don't misunderstand, I am not and have never been a CIA officer. Back in the 1990s, I was locked up for around 4 years because I got hit on a weed charge. It was not my first offense, and they told me that because of the amount I was carrying, they could hit me with intent to sell. How is anyone stupid enough to get caught twice? The first time was pure dumb luck, but the second time, someone snitched on me and the cops raided my house. My parents were not in contact with me, so I was used to being on my own. Still though, it was not a good time for me. I was only just an adult and my life was in ruins just because I wanted to get high. I was desperate to get out of there. I think I served around a year before I got a visit one day. Not me, personally. It was during rec time. This guy came in for a talk about future career opportunities and that kind of stuff. He gave this lecture for the few who chose to sit around. He said that this program was being run for medical trials. I can't remember what he said it was for, but something really innocuous. The idea was that if we signed up, then not only would we get paid, but our sentences would be shortened for good behavior. I didn't think that was legal, and seemed way too good to be true, but I just wanted out. So I signed my name on the dotted line and agreed to it. I was still in handcuffs the entire time, but I was transferred out of the prison temporarily and got taken to somewhere. From what I could work out, because I couldn't see anything in the back of the vehicle that I was taken in, I figured it was somewhere underground, but I could not be fully sure. I was given a room that was just barely better than a cell, but the food was definitely better. I was not the only one who volunteered, but usually I never saw anyone else. We all had separate sessions, is what they called them, but I could sometimes hear them talking late at night. So, the next day, the testing started. I got blood taken, I got my heart rate tracked. They did all kinds of tests that I knew nothing about. Made me run on a treadmill, that kind of stuff. The waiver I signed basically said they could do whatever to me. The second day is when they started to do things that were not tests. On day 2, I was sat on a bed in a room with a large mirror, with just 2 people in coats inside observing me. I was handed a cup of water and some pills and asked to take them. When I asked what they were for, I was told that they would relax me and make me more open. I took them, and once I did, I was strapped down to the bed and injected with something in my arm. I didn't know what it was, and because my head was also strapped down, I could not see what it looked like. I sat staring at the ceiling for around 5 minutes or so. They told me to count backwards from 100, so I thought maybe it might be to put me to sleep or something, since that's what they tell you to do for sedatives before surgery. I think I got to around 89 when my vision just went black, completely black. I could not see anything anymore, but I wasn't asleep, but I could not feel anything either. I heard the door open at the end of the room, and someone wearing heavy boots walk in. I could hear the 2 people in coats talking and reading things out, but I could not feel anything. I could not feel my arms or legs, and any attempts that I made to move them did not work. I couldn't feel any motion or tension or anything in my body. Everything was blank, except I couldn't hear anything. But I was still counting backwards. I physically was not doing anything. I could not feel myself counting or moving my mouth or saying the words. I couldn't feel the vibrations in my throat, but I could hear the numbers being said in my own voice. It was at this point that this feeling of dread hit my stomach really hard. And when I felt this feeling of dread, the people in the coats got really worried and started shouting something about me having a seizure, but I could not feel it whatsoever. I heard the door open and more people rush in. I don't know what they did or what happened to me. I don't know how long my mind stayed like that until my vision came back. When it did come back, I was back in my room. One of the medical staff gave me a small debrief, but didn't tell me all that much. They told me that it was a mild success, but that I would need to stick around for more tests. When I got a little bit worried and said that I did not feel very well and didn't really want to do any more, they immediately switched the topic, started telling me about the money, told me that they were increasing it. For someone as poor as I was, it was an eye-watering amount, but that feeling I had when I was strapped down, it was the worst feeling in the entire world. But I accepted. The next day was much of the same. Water, what I assume were the same pills again, strapped down, and then the injection. This time, they did not tell me to start counting backwards. They actually told me to stay quiet and focus on a certain spot in the room. They had put a little red marker using tape and told me to keep staring at that no matter what. My eyes were starting to get blurry, and they stung a little, but I kept going, until one of the staff told me to blink, and then I did. I thought it strange that my vision did not go black, but assumed it was either not part of the process or that this was something different. I thought that until I went to blink a second time, but I couldn't blink. Just like before when my vision was gone, I physically could not do it. I could not move anything at all once again. I was starting to panic and freak out, and one of the staff came up to me and undid my straps. Then I was told to sit upright. I actually tried to say out loud, "I can't move," but no words came out of my mouth, and instead I just sat up. It's so hard to describe, but this was not a voluntary movement. It just happened, but I could not actually feel anything. I didn't feel any sensation when my hand gripped the bed for support. I did not feel my feet touching the ground. I could not feel the bed below me. That feeling of dread was growing more and more, but it was taking longer than the first time. It was building. Then the staff asked me to stand up, walk across the room, and open up the door. The second those words left his mouth, my body just started going. I actually tried to stop and stand still, but I couldn't. I could see and hear everything, but I could not feel anything, and I could not control anything. I could hear every single step that I was taking, and I could see that my motions were just normal, just how I would normally walk and not robotic at all. But I was panicking so much in my head, and the closer that I got to the door, the more I could feel that dread building. And then I saw myself put my hand on the doorknob and begin to turn it. And then, all of a sudden, I saw myself collapse to the ground. I did not feel the impact, but I saw that multiple people came rushing through the door to check on me. I could see from my vision that I was shaking, because my eyes were shaking, violently shaking. Just, my vision was bobbing up and down, rapidly. I had to watch as people crowded around me. I had to watch as I was injected with something else, I think. I think I saw my blood being taken. I was in that state for probably around 12 hours as I saw all sorts of tests being done on me. When I finally got control back inside of my room, the first thing I did was vomit and just start heavy breathing on the floor. I told the guy straight up that I never ever wanted to do that ever again. I told him I would rather be in prison. But he started going on about the money again. It was now triple what they initially offered me, but I just started screaming, no, and that I did not want to do that anymore. Then he started telling me that they would wipe my convictions, that it would be like I never got caught. They said that they would even wipe my first charge from all those years ago, and not just my second offense. I sat and thought about it all night, because I could barely sleep. And when they came to get me in the morning, I told them that I would do it one last time. This final time was the shortest one, but it was also the worst by far. The memory of it is seared into my brain, and no matter how much I tried to forget, I couldn't. When I got to the room this time, there was already someone laying down on a bed that was spaced a few meters away from mine. I asked what was going on, and they told me that they needed to run a parallel test. They said that the man on the bed was already out, and that he would not interfere with me at all. So the same cycle went by again. More pills and water. They gave me the injection, but did not even bother to strap me down this time. They told me to just focus on the red marker again. And just like that, I could not move my body anymore. And this is where it became horrible. Both me and the man on the other bed, we were told to stand up. Once we did that, we were told to face each other. One of the staff members came and placed something on my hand. I had no idea what it was because I could not look down. My gaze was just fixed on this man in front of me. He was nothing remarkable, just your average Joe prison inmate inked up to his eyes. Then I saw a staff member run and put something in his hands. This one I could see. He had a knife. The knife must have been maybe 6 inches. It was like some kind of tactical knife. I could feel that dread feeling really rising up in me. I wanted to start crying, but no tears would come. I could only think about crying in my head. And then the staff member gave us the same order at the same time. We were told to kill each other. I could not even stop myself. I tried so hard, but as soon as he said it, I just saw my vision bobbing up and down, and I knew that I was running. The man in front of me, he stuck me with the knife in my chest. I didn't feel it at all. I just saw the knife go, and I heard the sound. I saw the blood start to drip down me, and from his knife when I saw him pull it out of my body. But my body just kept on going. It did not stop once. And before I knew it, I had tackled him to the floor while he was pulling the knife away to swing at me again. And I saw that I had managed to get my arms wrapped around his neck. I could hear the choking sounds that he was making. And without even a moment's hesitation, I saw myself bring the knife up to his throat. And then all I could hear was the slicing sound and the gurgling that came afterwards. Once that happened, I felt that feeling of dread stronger than ever before. I saw myself just drop the knife and my head fall back to the ground. Some staff rushed over to me, and it was just the same as before. All I could think in my head was, what the hell did I just do? What the hell have they been doing to me? I had no explanation whatsoever. I tried to cry, but I just couldn't. The feeling was longer that time. I don't think I could move again by myself for maybe a full 24 hours this time. The time seemed to pass by ever so slowly. When I finally had control again, I just felt tears pouring out, and I must have vomited for around an hour straight. The medical staff did not beg me for another test. An armed guard came for me this time and told me to turn around so that he could cuff me. He brought me into a dark conference room kind of thing, more like a police questioning room. He sat me down in there, and I must have waited for someone for a few hours. I was not given any water, and all I could taste in my mouth was the taste of vomit. At some point, these 2 men finally walked in and sat down. They pulled out a piece of paper and slid it across the desk and handed me a pen. Then they flashed me a badge. This was the first time they had ever done this. It was a CIA badge, or at least that's what it looked like. I am no expert, so I guess it could have been a fake, but I wouldn't even know where to begin on finding out the difference. They talked to me for a few hours, but it's way too long to get into properly here. They laid out a lot of expectations for me, about where I could live, where I could go, who I could talk to, how I could spend the money that they gave me, etc. They told me that I could not contact old friends, that I could not talk to any dealers or get in trouble. I was told in more veiled terms that if I disclosed anything about my experience to anyone, that they would come and put me back in prison. Or worse, I suppose. I didn't get out of prison immediately. I think I went back inside for a month, and it was the longest month of my life. I just mostly sat around staring off into space, because I could not even come to terms with what happened and what I experienced. None of it felt real. When I finally got outside, I just coasted. I used the money to get my own place. I didn't work. I just sat around my home eating trash and playing video games. It took me a really long time to adjust and feel real again, to feel like an actual human being. It took a lot of crying and a lot of time. About a year and a half after all of this, I started going outside again. I started going to the gym and making friends, and I even got a shitty job. But I felt fulfilled for the first time in a very long time. I felt like my life was finally getting back on track. I didn't need the job really, but I wanted something to do. I wanted to feel useful. This bliss lasted for maybe half a year, maybe slightly more. I got a knock on my door one night around 9 p.m. I was not expecting anyone, so I took a look for the people first. It was 2 officers in uniform, so I opened up the door and asked why they were calling. They told me that something happened in the area, blah blah blah. Can we come in and take a statement? I told them I was happy to talk to them and invited them in. One of them asked to use the bathroom, while the other started to ask me some questions about a neighbor that I vaguely knew. About how she was missing, if I saw anything strange in the area, etc. The other officer was in the toilet for a long time, and so I cracked a joke to the other officer about it, but he didn't really find it funny. And I think it was in that moment that my brain just started to twig that something was wrong. It was just subconscious at first, eye movements, hand movements, the way he was talking. But after that, he said something about the neighbor that I knew was wrong, that any officer who had done any ounce of research or even just read the file of the person would have known. He said something about her having a husband, but I actually said out loud to the officer something about remembering her being a single mother, and he gave me a really strange look. I noticed throughout the whole conversation, he kept looking somewhere else, like he was looking through me or behind me. And out of nowhere, I just felt this force from behind me on my neck. The officer behind me was restraining me by the neck, and the second he did, the one in front ran towards me. He forced some pills in my mouth, and I kept trying to bite him, but he punched me really hard, and it left me a little bit dazed. The room was spinning, and he started injecting me with something. I heard him mumbling something about me having a contract to fulfill. He told me to stare at the light on the ceiling, but I could barely even keep my vision focused. And before I knew it, I could not move my body again. It was exactly like it was all of those years ago during those tests. This next part is probably the lowest point in my entire life. I don't really understand the whys so much as the hows. I was told to stand up, and my body did it of its own accord. The whole time, just like in the testing, I tried to fight and make my body do something else, but it never worked. They shoved something in my ear. I did not see what it was. It was lodged in there though, like I was wearing earbuds. I remember they gave me an address, and they told me to drive to that location. And off I went. It was just a random house on a residential street. I drove for a very long time, a couple of hours at least. Without me having any input, I parked the car and sat there. After that, I started to hear this voice talking in my ear, the same one from the officer. He started telling me to enter the house. A lot happened after this. I was told where the spare key was and opened up the front door. There was a guy on the couch in the front room, and I was told to physically restrain him. He started screaming at me and all sorts of things, but I just kept going, even when he hit me across the face with a baseball bat. I didn't even feel it. It did not slow me down at all. I ended up on the floor with him. I had taken the bat from him and struck him in the knees repeatedly. I was told to tie him up and where to find the rope to do it, and I did. I was told that he had a basement and to carry him down there. I was told where in his house to find work tools and to bring them to the basement. After that, I don't even want to go into the details because it makes me sick to think about. Because I tortured him for hours and hours. I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't stop the vomit. I couldn't do anything. I just had to watch as I ripped fingernail after fingernail. I had to watch as I made cuts on this man's eye using a razor blade, as I grabbed a cloth and waterboarded him. I had to watch him struggle and try to scream and try desperately to escape. I don't know what any of it was for. I was told to ask him questions, but it was all in code. They would tell me to say things that sounded just like gibberish to me. He clearly seemed to understand, and he would respond in a similar manner. And when he did, they would either tell me to torture him again or ask him something else. After it was done and they were finished with him, they told me so. They told me to put down my tools and go and sit down on the couch, and I did. It was only around 5 minutes after I sat down that the police busted in and arrested me. I was told to comply and to be truthful, and I did just that. Everything was a whirlwind after that. I never felt that feeling of dread like I did all those other times. It wasn't even me speaking to my lawyer. I could not move my body myself again until long after I was locked up. I barely even remember the sentencing. It was like I learned to fall asleep while my eyes were still open and my body was still doing things. I got 20 years in prison for aggravated assault, battery with a weapon, kidnapping, and a whole host of other charges that I don't really remember. I should have gotten life. I don't know why I didn't get life. I can only assume something happened behind the scenes, but what benefit would 20 years be compared to me rotting away for longer? I was let out on parole after around 15 years or so. My life has never been the same since the day I got out. I thankfully still had a lot of the money left, but it's been a struggle. I started talking to my dealers again, but not for weed this time. It's been so many years, and I've never gotten another visit. I just don't feel safe anymore. I don't know what they did to me or my body. I barely sleep at night because I am scared that they are going to come for me again and make me do something else. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I've seen a lot of people from Alabama sharing their stories tonight. I am from Blount County myself. I will share a story of my own. I lived in this large apartment neighborhood, I guess you would call it. There is this large area of woods that's directly behind them. I was a youngster back then when this happened, probably around 10 years old. I started to hang out with all the other guys that lived in the apartments. I actually found 2 of my best friends there. Anyway, around 10 of us in total decided to explore the woods one day. These woods are extremely thick, with all sorts of plants, poison ivy, trees, and bushes. We were walking straight back for about an hour. We stumble upon this area that is completely cleared, no vegetation or anything. There is just dirt floor, and what looked like the charred remains of a building or something. We decide to make this spot our new club. All 10 of us decide to take a chair or whatever that we wanted to sit on out there from our respective houses. We decide to clear the area of the burnt debris. After clearing the area, we realized that we could never get the burnt look gone from the area. We then dubbed it the burnout. Anyway, after around 2 years of us all chilling, camping, having the best time of our lives with the bros, the area suddenly starts constantly smelling like smoke. We are always careful of bringing anything that could catch fire. We have not made a fire in months at this point. A month after we started smelling the smoke, everyone became distant and paranoid. I can't really explain it, but everyone just seemed off. Me and my 2 best bros go out one day to the burnout and are just chilling, doing some homework. By this time, we have desks and so much of our stuff out there, tarps for the weather. I suddenly start to hear this weird whimpering noise that immediately makes my hair stand up, and I immediately jump into fight mode. My bros hear it as well. We are just standing there and waiting. There is absolutely no sound. My ears are ringing like crazy. I suddenly start to smell smoke. I suddenly start to hear someone screaming/gargling. It's just this yell of pain saying, It burns, oh God, it burns. Me and my friends book it as fast as we possibly can away from that place. I don't even stop when we are out of the woods. I just keep running until I hit my house. Within 30 minutes, local fire department is flying full force to the woods and immense clouds of smoke are rising. 90% of the forest is burned down. Me and my bros are blamed for it. No one believes us or our story. Every other member of our burnout bros disappear without a trace. I have only heard from one of them besides my best bros, and he is so messed up. He has been in and out of mental institutions and will not talk about the burnout. I have not talked about it since this happened to anyone except text now. I still have no idea what happened there. This story is about a small town holy man. Help me out. Was he LARPing? I was at a funeral, and the next day, I bumped into the guy who had conducted the services. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours, and I was happy to talk to him as he had said something during the service which had piqued my interest. Thing number 3 below. He is a small town guy, old man, 80 plus years old, the pastor of the only church in town. The town is around 300 people. By his estimation, he has put 450 to 500 people in the ground over a 50-year career and had sat with about 150 to 200 of them as they had passed away. He told me a couple of things that I thought were interesting, and so I thought I would share them here to see if anyone else had any genuine input. The first thing, he said that when he sat with the people as they died, he could tell the exact moment the spirit left the body, and it did not always correspond to signs of physical death, aka they may have still been breathing or faintly moving and rattling, etc. This makes sense to me. Also, from reading that clairvoyant book on Gutenberg, which talks about the 2 hidden, non-paranormal senses that humans possess, one which is the ability to sense the presence of others in a space or area without physically seeing or hearing them, including the ability to sense a person who has just left a room even several minutes later. So, this may explain this part of the tale, and this makes sense medically as well, given that movements in the body continues long after brain death in many cases. Although he did go on to say that he could sometimes see the souls leave the body in a lightness around the eyes and face that dissipated upward. This part, however, I thought may have been an embellishment for the benefit of the local rubes. The second thing, he said that he had 2 visions of death at which he was not physically present, but that he saw the moment of death just as it had occurred, and both times was somewhat unusual / traumatic. One was a gentleman who had pulled through an intersection on a motorcycle and had been struck by a van and killed. The preacher said he'd seen a vision of the exact moment the man had flown through the air and been struck in the right shoulder by the panel piece that extends between 2 windows in a van. This had killed him instantly and broken his neck, and he said he had seen his body flying through the air and his spirit going upward. This was apparently confirmed in the hospital, where it was shown that the man had suffered massive trauma to the right shoulder and broken his neck. The other death the preacher said he had witnessed was that of a gentleman who was a known drunk around town. This man often would stagger home from the town's only bar at 2 to 3 a.m. One night in the dead of the winter, he was found frozen to death in his small shack-like cabin. Winter in the north is harsh, and the preacher said he had a vision of the exact moment in which the guy had stumbled and fallen while trying to put kerosene into the large unit that was sitting a foot or so away from the wall, and had drunkenly lurched and fallen behind it, never lighting the heater, which would have saved him from the freezing. So again, very oddly specific, but apparently the man was found in the exact same position as the preacher had described. So I have yet to verify this, but I would definitely ask another local before I believed him on this one. The third thing, which is what he had said while delivering the service, was that he had a heart attack a year or 2 before and had been dead for 5 or 7 minutes, but that while he was gone, he experienced a different reality, and that it was as so different from this reality as to be completely indescribable, like nothing about heaven I had ever thought or heard or imagined of. That's an exact quote from my memory as of a few days ago, from what I can remember. Keep in mind, this is from a small town preacher man who had been raised in that old time religion, streets of gold, etc. He even said that there were no streets at all, just a lot of weird lines and shapes that made no sense, but that were beautiful beyond compare and gave him overwhelming peace. This is what he said at the funeral. I apologize for using all caps, but this is why I thought this was crazy, because this is basically apostasy as far as this guy is concerned, and he is telling it like it is to a bunch of small town folks. It blew my damn mind, and it sounded exactly like a DMT trip, to be quite honest. So this is the part I thought was least likely to be a LARP out of the whole thing. Now, my thoughts were overall that he was either telling the truth, and the last part really inclined me to think so at least. The first two things might have been ways that he bolstered his own legend around town, or used to increase his own air of mysticism. I do tend to think skeptically in many such cases, as a person's desire to feel special and powerful can take many forms, and the only thing I am surprised at by now is that I ever expect anyone to be any different. But I did not get much of a sense out of him that he was lying, a sense that I have developed to a decent degree. So he is either an accomplished liar, which is easy enough in practice, or was telling the truth, or the truth as he interpreted it. Well, that is about it for my story. Thank you for reading along. Do Anons have anything relatable to contribute, or thoughts of their own?